AURORA is an extremely fun champion with a ton of tools available to carry games. Now, the best part is that she's super simple to pick up to add to your champion pool while also having a ton of potential skill expression, which will definitely reward putting in the time to master her kit. So in this guide, we're going to run you through everything you need to immediately start playing with AURORA. We're going to break down her kit first, keeping things as simple as possible for you to understand. Then we're going to share the best combos and tips for using those spells, then laning, her win conditions, and much, much more. And did you know that with a 55% win rate, it takes 160 games on average to go up just one rank? Now increase your win rate by just 5%, and that time is literally cut in half to only 80 games. This is the power of skill cap. Each course offers a win rate increase that's literally a click away. Learn what took Challengers players 10 whole years to figure out in just 10 minutes. We supercharge your rank gains with real results. Just click the link in the description below now to get the rank that you've always dreamed of. Okay, so let's break down her kit first. Starting things off, she comes with a standard 3-hit passive. Any combination of spells and autos 3 times will deal percentage max damage on your opponent and give you a spirit. The more spirits you have following you, the more you're going to heal and the faster you'll go. But they do run out pretty quickly and you're going to lose all of them at the same time, so it's hard to keep them up for too long. And now for Q, her main damage ability. This fires a skill shot that's going to curse any targets it hits. You have 4 seconds to press the spell again, which will end the curse, dealing damage to anyone hit by the initial Q. A couple of key details here. This does execute damage, so you want to use those 4 seconds to deal as much damage as possible so you can finish off your target with the second part of the Q. Also, the cooldown goes down after the initial cast, so don't worry about holding it too long. This works almost exactly like Lee Sin's Q does. Finally, one of the best parts about the spell is that the return damage from your second Q is going to damage any enemies between the target all the way back to you. So moving on to the W. Your W is a hop and a stealth. It's going to also boost your movement speed by giving you your passives buff, but without the healing. If you're watching this to learn how to counter AURORA, don't worry, it sounds more OP than it really actually is. Here's what it looks like when one uses it in front of you. It's typically easy to tell where they're going to go if the AURORA doesn't know what they're doing. Also, the hop is decent mobility around the jungle, and here you can see the type of walls that you can just hop over. You can typically get over small to medium-sized walls. The best part is definitely the fact that this spell resets on any takedown though. This reset is part of the reason you're going to soon see that AURORA is such a team fighting menace. You just keep resetting in fights, just hopping all over the place. Now, like we mentioned, one hop isn't really that hard to follow, but when AURORA is skipping and stealthing all over a team fight, I mean, that's definitely when she's at her strongest. So moving on to your E, it's a channeled damage skill shot. After a short delay, you burst targets in front of you, slowing them and knocking yourself back just a little bit. Now, unlike her W, this isn't a good mobility spell, so don't use it like that. You have to be right next to a very thin wall to get over it. You'll almost never do this. Okay, so let's move on to her R, and there is a lot to cover on the R. This is one of the most ridiculous spells released in a very long time in League, so a lot of AURORA's power and skill expression is going to come from it. Let's start with the basics. AURORA will dash in a direction, creating an area around where she lands. Any enemies inside are going to take damage. Your opponents can't walk out of here. They also can't dash away either with spells like Lucian's Dash. They have to use a blink ability like Ezreal's E or Flash to escape. Now, on the other hand, if AURORA goes to the edge of her ult, she's going to teleport to the opposite side. If you're imagining some crazy plays where you attack someone with Q and then reposition to drag the return damage through multiple people, well, yeah, you can do that. You can also knock yourself into the wall with your E. The rite of passage required to pick up this champion is that you 100% will kill or troll yourself with this teleport. It's so easy to forget it's a thing when you first pick her up, but there is an easy solution to this problem. If you want to avoid that disaster just completely, then you should know that you can just simply cancel your ult by pressing R again, so you can actually walk out of danger. Now that we've covered her kit, let's talk about all the ways you can make the most out of her abilities with some tips and combos. First things first, your bread and butter trading and kill pattern is going to be QEQ. This procs your 3-hit passive and electrocute if you happen to take that room. The most important thing about this sequence is that pressing E before your Q will lead to a big delay between your spells, making it easy to react to. You should always press Q before E, since this is the smoothest way to combo both spells together. Since this combo is so important, you should know that you can input buffer Q before flash for a faster cast. Now you can do this for your E too, which is especially important since it's such a telegraphed ability. And if you have some fast fingers on you, you should 100% combine these combos together and do QE and then flash, buffering both spells for a fast kill combo that's hard to react to. This is an extremely useful combo that's going to net you a ton of kills, and we'd highly suggest practicing it a bit if you're not used to pressing all of your keys so quickly together. A final tip for your Q is to remember about its execute damage. You should almost always wait out enemy shields or let burns tick before using the return part of the damage. This may sometimes be the difference between you scoring a kill or not. Okay, so like we said before though, a lot of Aurora's power is in her ultimate. So let's break down a ton of ways that you can optimize using her ultimate. First and foremost, you want to really make sure that you have a normal cast keybind for it, at least until you master Aurora. This is going to be important so you can see the exact area that's going to be covered by your ultimate. Knowing this lets you do quite a few useful things. For starters, it lets you lead your targets where you want them. Let's say you're setting up a gank and your jungler's coming with you. If you simply R towards your lane opponent, you're going to give them so much more room to kite towards away from your jungler. But if you angle your ult properly, you're going to give them way less room to work with, making the gank much more likely to work. This can also apply to keeping yourself alive. If you're the one being ganked, you can angle your ultimate to give yourself an instant wall to teleport to safely. Like in this example, Aurora was getting caught out, so she walked right next to herself with the other side away from the enemy team, letting her quickly just hop away. Another thing to keep in mind is how Aurora can use her ultimate in really tricky ways to dive. For starters, you can use the tip we just talked about to give yourself an easy escape route after diving your opponent, but you can also use your ult to outplay tower aggro. You see, while you're traveling by bouncing through your R's walls, you aren't something the tower can aggro. So in between shots, you can send yourself back and forth through the wall to damage your opponent without taking any damage. Now, while that's very useful, it's not completely broken. This trick isn't going to cancel out any existing tower shots already on their way to you. Now, as you can see, that second tower shot actually dealt damage, so canceling them requires precise timing, which isn't easy when diving an actual player. And as a final tip in regards to your ultimate is to remember that sometimes you won't trap your opponents in with you, you're going to be trapping yourself in with them. Aurora fits into that category of mage like Kennen, Vladimir, and Fiddlesticks that want to go in the middle of the enemy team but don't have the resistances to do so. Buying Zhonya's so you can actually engage with your ultimate without fearing of dying is an option that you should definitely consider. Now that being said, through our testing, we found that Aurora has so much mobility and stealth built into her kit during a team fight that Zhonya's didn't really feel necessary early in the game. We'd recommend building it as one of your last few items rather than feeling like you have to rush it every single game. So let's move on to laning. Aurora is a fairly simple champion with clear trading patterns, so there's only a few things that you really need to keep in mind to win most trades. First things first, your QEQ combo will be your primary way of trading throughout the lane. It's simple, it's effective, and there's really not a whole lot to say about it. However, both spells have a pretty short range, especially if you're playing Aurora in mid lane. Compared to other mages, Aurora is definitely on the losing side of the range battle. But that's where your W can really come in handy. If you're having a hard time reaching your opponent, you can W towards them. Remember, your hop gives you both stealth and movement speed. This lets you reach your opponent and set up a QE trade that they probably won't be able to dodge, since you're casting your spells from stealth. Now, one small tip to keep in mind is that you'll inevitably miss your skill shots. You'll never have 100% accuracy. And now that being said, you may want to try and Q your opponents in the wave at the same time when casting Q. A common fundamental is to push forward when your opponent misses a spell to punish them with your cooldown advantage. But if you landed a Q on minions, you can defend yourself from this timing a little bit better. Once the enemy walks past the marked minions, you can use your return Q to deal damage and help you trigger your passive a little bit easier for a clean trade. The second part of your Q is going to come in handy not just in trades, but also during ganks and 2v2 skirmishes. Always make sure you keep track of what targets you've hit with your Q and try to reposition like a Xayah would to get the most out of the return part of the damage. Other than that, your primary focus during the laning phase is actually setting up as many kills as possible with your ultimate. The engage range on this ability is absolutely insane, and it's almost always a guaranteed flash or kill when you press it at the right time. Now take a look at this moment for example. AURORA sees a fight happening in bot lane and teleports into Samir's face. Now normally this would be a terrible teleport and you should never do it, since they can just react and run away. But AURORA can close so much distance with her W and her R that she easily catches up and sets up a double kill. It's absolutely ridiculous how little counterplay there is to this engage. Your opponents genuinely just can't react to how much distance you can cover. You can just stealth into a lane and engage from over half a screen away. If your opponent doesn't even have a flash, there's literally nothing they can do, and this should be one of the main things you abuse throughout the laning phase as AURORA. Alright, let's move past the laning phase now and talk about all the ways AURORA should be looking to win the map. This can actually depend quite a bit on your build here. AURORA can go a ton of different paths, looking to burst or be more of a brawler in fights. So if you go for more burst-oriented items, then there's this super simple cheese you can pull off to quickly assassinate those squishy targets. Remember how we mentioned that your stealth doesn't last very long? And you can't walk up to someone like a Twitch could and wait for the perfect moment to assassinate someone. However, your stealth lasts just long enough to where if someone is walking towards you, you can catch them off guard. This works really well when your opponents are looking to contest mid-priority and are predictably just walking forward. If you stealth into the lane as they're walking into you, you'll close the gap with just enough time to catch them off guard for a quick QEQ combo to instantly burst them. We found this was pretty reliable, and it's good to do even if you're not running a full burst build, as your QEQ combo will at the very least chunk out a squishy target. And keep in mind that if you do have this burst-oriented build, that sneaking into brushes like an assassin would is excellent as well. So it's so much easier to land your Q and E from stealth or a brush, and you should absolutely be looking to abuse vision to score quick kills or big poke. You can also find a home in the side lane as well. AURORA has all the tools that a typical split push mage wants to have. She has percentage-based damage with her passive, which gives her consistent DPS, which is usually required to shred through tanks or bruisers that are going to try to defend your split. Not only that, but she's super slippery, allowing her to get away even when she's being collapsed on while she's on her own. Now that being said, AURORA was clearly designed as a team fighting champion, so you should be grouping and engaging fights more than anything else. A ton of her power budget is in her ultimate, and its primary use is locking down multiple people in fights. In team fights, your goal is to get in, make it miserable for enemy carries to position, and then you look to clean things up like an Ahri would with constant W resets, letting you chase and finish off everything just trying to get away from you. Now let's talk about what roles are going to best suit her. Mid seems to be the obvious one here, and the primary reason you're going to play her here is to enable her roam potential. Having quick access to the entire map to abuse her overpowered ultimate is an absolute no-brainer. Top lane also suits her pretty decently as well. A lot like a Kennen likes to play top, you can easily harass melee champions while they have a hard time just getting on top. So you win lane, and you can easily scale into late game fights later. We tried jungle, and honestly it is playable, but unfortunately her clear is a bit slow, and that's literally the most important thing to being a jungler these days. So she'll be an off-meta jungler most likely. It's definitely not her best option. Now all that being said, we have a sneaking suspicion that she may end up simply being a support champion. So much of the power of her kit is in the ultimate, so it's very likely she rushes utility items like Rocket Belt and Zhonya's and just plays to engage fights for her team. Let's hope that isn't the case, but it's a very likely possibility here. Okay guys, one last thing. Our rank up guarantee is absolutely insane. It's kind of like signing up for the gym and then just getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in Skillcapped. We obsess over making the best guides with the top players, the rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb as easy as possible. If you're ready to level up, just visit skillcapped.com and literally literally see the difference. In any case, that is going to wrap up this whole guide, and we hope you found it helpful. Good luck, have fun playing Aurora, and we'll catch you next time.